for the Sunshine Law and the MPC?
Yes.
Thank you. Gentlemen, you were sent copy of the May 22nd, 2023 board minutes. There are no additions, deletions, and corrections. I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hanson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bingham? Any discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none, Mr. Hanson,
In favor.
Mr. Kyle,
In favor.
Mr. Bingham,
In favor.
and I'll also vote in favor. The May 20, excuse me, the May 22nd, 2023 minutes have been approved. There are no minutes for June since the board did not have a meeting that month. So Beth, old business. Nothing? Oh, also forgot to say this. We are not only here in person, but also on the internet. Is there anyone on, Beth?
Have Nate Sturgis, our planning director, Don Nickerson, Mike Viazzi, and they're with Leather Lumber.
Okay.
There's more as well.
Well, keep an eye on that. So if any of them have questions or comments.
KC Leather
Excuse
is
me?
on as well. KC Leather.
Okay,
It's one of the lumber.
yes. Okay. So with that being said, Beth, first case, please.
First case number 2462, Leather Lumber, Inc., 2008 Marietta Avenue, seeking a special exception to expand a non-conforming use structure and variances for maximum lot coverage, non-conformity limited to the lot of record, increase existing dimensional non-conformities, and maximum building area.
Okay, is anyone here from Leather
Thank you.
Lumber or their representative? Is anyone in the audience that wants to be a party to this case? Anybody on the internet? Give that to those.
This is Casey Lesnar. I'm Vice President, Lesnar Company. Mike Viazzi is going to speak about our plan when there's questions about it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Sorry about that.
It's changed back there.
Seeing no one in the audience and no one on the internet.
We,
Party.
uh,
Okay.
Ready?
Yes, please.
Okay, sorry. Yes, my name is Mark McGreckey. I am with Pantera Engineering of Lancaster. Address is 3904 Able Drive, Suite B, Columbia, Pennsylvania, 17512. I am president and owner of the company, and I've been a registered landscape architect for 29 years and 10 months right now, almost 30 years. And have been practicing in the state the entire time. Is there a pointer with this?
Yes.
Have one right here.
He has one, I think.
You have one there? Okay.
Mr.
There we go. All right,
One
thank you.
second, Mr. Chairman, I was a little bit distracted for a second, so I'm not sure. Was there a question asked if anyone else wanted to be a party to this proceeding?
I saw none in the audience
Oh.
or heard any from the internet.
Did someone?
The three from Leather that are on Zoom, do they want to be a part of?
The three folks on Zoom are, they are representatives of Leather Lumber.
Well, then
Inc.,
they're already a
so I
party
think
to
they
the-
should be party by
Yeah,
automatic, but
right.
there's three gentlemen on the line there, and they're available for any questions you might have relative to the operations, but I'll be providing most of the presentation tonight.
Mr.
Can you
McGregor.
hear me okay?
Yes, but
Okay.
if you do any pointing, please point at that one so we can see.
That Good.
So we
point.
know what you're pointing at.
Absolutely. Point well taken.
Indeed.
Yes. Let me just grab my
Appreciate a
notes
good
here,
thought.
sorry. So tonight, we're here on behalf of Lesser Lumber Incorporated to seek a special exception to expand their current property located at 2008 Marietta Avenue. I'm kind of outlining it right now. It's a 7.71 acre parcel that contains their existing retail building supply store, lumber, whatever you'd like to classify it as. It has been in operation there for a number of years. They purchased it in 2007. It used to be J.H. Brubaker. I did provide you a copy of a plan there. That's a record copy of a plan from July 1, 2002, which was a subdivision plan. The second sheet in the upper corner of that document depicts what was J.H. Brubaker at the time, which is the same tract. It's just a point of reference to show that the improvements that are depicted on the exhibit up here are, I would say, exactly the same as they were in 2002. The reason that's important is that in 2014, when they adopted the new zoning ordinance, this property became non-conforming with regard to impervious lot coverage and regard to building area. We are in the village commercial zoning district, and the limitations for lot coverage are 50%, and we are at 84.10%. And the maximum building area allowed is 5,000 square feet, and we currently have 61,866 square feet of building area, which are the various buildings that you see outlined in the darker hatched on the plan.
Sure. A couple quick questions here. This plan that you gave us showing the old Brubaker property,
Yes, sir.
you go to the zoning notes, they were already over lot coverage back then.
I agree. I'm just, that's the only record plan that I could find available that shows it as it existed before 2014. And one of our criteria when we are looking to expand a nonconformity is to show that it was an established nonconformity that we, so that's the only purpose of that plan. When we get to the expansion, you'll see we're actually, if you go, well, let me get through the two properties that we're seeking. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, before you go on, did you have this marked as an exhibit? Okay, we'll mark this as a applicant's exhibit 1.
Sure.
The Brubaker final subdivision plan. And Cheryl will market it, or she's going to mark yours.
Do we need to mark any of the other exhibits?
We
that we're
will.
speaking to? Okay.
Yeah, but to get to them. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Cheryl. Continue, sir, please.
So it may well be that it's been non-conforming well before 2014, sir. So point well taken. Nonetheless, it's still non-conforming and it would still fall under the regulations of how non-conformities would expand. And so with that, the other parcels, they actually own, purchased it in 2021. The adjacent, it used to be a single family residence, 2016 Church Street. The odd part about this is that it actually is a single family residence, but it exists on 2 separate lots, and that's how it's deeded.
So question on that. Are you sure that's correct? Because the county GIS shows that as a single lot.
I'm doing this based upon the deed. I did bring a copy of the deed if you want to see a copy of
So
the
the deed
deed.
is showing as
The
two
deed
separate.
shows it as 2, and our surveyor is the one that brought this to light. It was a bit of a surprise to us as well. So what that means is this lot, I guess technically still has some weird nonconformities with side yards that would need to be cleaned up regardless. But nonetheless, the property of consideration is this entire 0.15 acres as we've been considering it as part of this application goes. So it's one address, 2016 Church Street, And it's one deed, but it has 2 lots on the deed. Odd, but not really part of what we're here for. If you could go to the next sheet, please, Beth, that's our proposed plan. This speaks a little bit better to what it is we're proposing. What we are requesting to do is essentially add that adjacent 0.5 acre parcel to our existing 7.71 acre parcel. It would become a combined 8.23 acres in size. With that, we're showing that me that did that?
Is this the correct page?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to?
Just needs to be zoomed
Zoomed
in.
in a little
Yeah,
bit.
sorry. That's fine. So what we're showing here is a minor expansion, 3,000 square feet to this existing storage building. I did include some pictures of that we can get to. We're also showing keeping the existing building that's there. It would be repurposed for office and accessory type related uses. It would not be customer area. This would also not be customer area. It's really more storage as what this building currently is as well. We are showing this displaces 10 parking spaces that are striped there, and there's 9 that are striped along here. I don't believe any of them are really dimensionally compliant to the current regulations. So this displaces about 19 striped parking spaces, and we are showing adding 35 more spaces in and around that building area, which would net us a total of 16 additional spaces on site, which would help us for, visitor parking, employee parking that's otherwise out in the main storage yard. And if, there is some parking that, just around the site, it would help consolidate the parking. And the expansion here is pretty much just necessary for getting some more material indoors instead of outdoors. So in a nutshell, this is what we're asking for. But under the regulations, the zoning regulations, 270-6.6 outlines what you need to do if you are expanding as an existing nonconformity. And so the first thing is under 6.6A, a special exception is required to expand a nonconforming use or structure. As I said earlier, the site is currently nonconforming with regard to both maximum building coverage and maximum lot coverage. And we would reduce, we increase in acreage, I understand that, but in percentage, as a result of the plan that we just showed you there, we would actually have a resultant lot coverage of 82.67% on the 8.238 on the 8.23 acre site. The proposed expansion for the building is similar in that it's 5,100 square feet, and we're at 61,866, which is about an 8.2% expansion of the building area. So I'll get to the specifics of the special exception requirements. I'm just kind of outlining right now the relief that we're looking for, and then I'll get into the criteria of the special exception, if that's all right. Also under 276.6, they have other requirements for expansion or alteration of non-conforming uses. 6.6B is that the expansion is confined to the lot on which it was located at the effective date of this chapter. That's one of the variances that we are seeking and have applied for relief, because we are clearly asking to incorporate the adjacent parcel into our current non-conforming lot. 6.6C is that the total of the expansions or alterations shall not exceed an additional 50% of the actual area of the buildings or structures devoted to non-conforming use. In this case, it's not a non-conforming use, it's a non-conforming structure, but the ordinance recognizes them as the same. The proposed building expansion is 8.2% of our total building area. So it's under 10%, well under the 50% threshold. Applicants shall furnish conclusive evidence as to the extent of nonconformity. As with the record plan, it says it was even non-conforming prior to 2002. So it's been a non-conforming lot for a number of years. It's been a lot that's been in existence for a number of years. And as shown on that plan, it hasn't expanded in 21 plus years. And as a business, it's necessary for it to have at least some ability to minor expansion. 6.6E, we have to furnish a detailed development plan. We're providing that layout plan. We also recognize that if we were successful, we would have to go through land development and get through all of those and accept any conditions in those regard to meet buffering requirements and anything that's required if we get to the point where we go through land development. But we feel we've provided a layout there. It's based on the survey and it's based on the dimensions required in the ordinance that shows what would need to be to get the project, at least as far as the coverages go, in the future. 6.6F, the appearance should be harmonious with the surrounding lots. I do have those pictures. We can offer those as another exhibit, maybe applicants too. That's just really kind of showing, they're just really some shots really from Google Street View, sitting on Church Street, looking east toward the property, shows the existing one-story single-family structure. And the purpose of this is to say that we would be not changing the character of that building. We're obviously going to put parking in there. There's several acres of paved area around us right now, and we would have some buffering along that common residential line. You can see along the alley, it's largely blocked off by garages to the residences that are to the north. And the buildings, if you go to the next one, 2 Church Street looking south, that's the existing building that we would be putting an expansion on the rear. And you can see it's more of a storage, overhead door, man door, metal building. I would imagine same height, same material, nothing that would be, it would be very similar to all the buildings that are out there. So it would be very harmonious to the current, the look out there. And I believe item G was the last one. As far as not creating new dimensional nonconformities, we are seeking a variance in that regard, mainly because simply by creating a new lot of record from going from a 7.71 acre lot to an 8.23 acre lot, we are going to need to reaffirm our dimensional nonconformities. We are expanding it in acreage, but in percentage, it does go down. So it's chicken and an egg thing, but in technical terms of the lot coverage, it would go down with this expansion. Items H, I, and J are all related to floodplain and aren't applicable to this site. So those are the criteria as they relate to the expansion of a non-conforming use. The primary takeaway from that one is that we need a special exception, and we have 2 items in there that we are seeking variance to, which I will now get into just outlining, and then we can explain our justification. The first section is 270-3.8E paren 6, and this is a village commercial lot area and bulk requirement for maximum lot coverage of 50%. And this is simply, as I stated before, we are an existing nonconformity, but even with creating the new lot to 8.23 acres, it would still be nonconforming with regard to coverage, and a variance would be needed to create that new lot. The second one is 270-3.8.E parens 8, which is maximum building area of 5,000 square feet. Again, similar to the prior request, the site is currently covered by 61,866 square feet of building area. Our new total would be around 66,966 square feet. We're adding 5,100 square feet. And again, that is an increase, but if you recall, under the non-conforming regulations, we're allowed up to a 50% increase, and this is only a 10% increase. So really, it's more of a technical requirement because we're going to be changing the lot area again to the 8.23. Item 3, or the third variance that we're seeking, is 270-6.6.b. And this is regarding the nonconformity being limited to the lot of record. We're asking for the 0.51 acres that is held in, that's owned by Lesser Lumber, but it wasn't operated. It was a residence, you know, before that, obviously, to be included into the business operations, and then therefore it would be ultimately allowed to change use inside that building. As far as the last variance that we're seeking is 270-6.6G, increasing an existing dimensional nonconformity. And again, I think this one just speaks mainly to the fact that we are adding additional land area, which, you know, technically does increase your dimensional nonconformity because we're going from a 7.71 acre site to 8.23 acres. The maximum lot coverage, which is, it would be reduced from the 84.1 to around 83% or 82.37, I think is what we calculated. So those are the requests as far as the special exception request goes, and as far as the 4 variance goes. As far as the special exception criteria that are outlined in section 270.9.1.e parens 2 parens A, I'd just like to briefly go through those and touch on those criteria. The first one being that we need to demonstrate compliance with anything specific to Article 5, but there are no specific criteria. We're not seeking a use variance, and those are what are not a use special exception by, and that's really more governed towards the use. So we really don't have any information to offer in that regard. As far as the general criteria go, the proposed use shall be consistent with the purpose and intent of the chapter, and you know, the property has been operating for probably well over 30 years now. And it has been survived several zoning districts, and we feel that it's a permitted use, and it is consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. The proposed use shall not detract from the use and enjoyment or nearby lots. We think that it's a minor expansion. The one building's already there. The other building is going to be largely hidden behind the current structure, and it's over existing impervious area. We're going to be replacing any displaced parking and adding some additional parking. And we feel that it won't have any detraction. And if anything, it should ensure that nobody's using Church Street to park on or idle or do whatever they might need to do. As far as trucks, I didn't really get to that. All the business deliveries are on Good Drive. None of them come through Trolley Avenue. We have a really unique way that you get to the site is through Trolley Avenue. Our frontage is actually along Church Street and along Good Drive. And then we have a really almost 1,000-foot deep. It's kind of shaped like a P or an L or a flag. It has unique access. I will say that for sure. But we don't think it will have an impact from the enjoyment of the neighbors or substantially change or alter the character of the property. We do have adequate public facilities. There wouldn't be really any need for water or sewer extensions with any of this. No new access points, no real new anticipated customers as of this. It's not designed for retail purposes. It's really designed for them to operate a little bit better. So we don't think we'll have any impact on schools, fire, police, the whole 9 yards. As far as item E goes, proposed use shall comply with the criteria listed in Articles 3, 4, and 5, which are other sections of the ordinance, and we'd say we intend to comply to those except for the ones that we're specifically seeking variance to in order to create the lot. As far as the location use with respect to any existing or future streets, we're behind Church Street. We don't have any impact on any of the future layout of the streets. It's going to improve our site circulation, if anything. So I think that we would be in harmony with that. Item G, intensity of the operations are in harmony with the order. There's going to be a minor expansion here, and there wouldn't be any change in how it currently operates and what everyone's used to seeing out there. So I think it would be pretty much a, stay equal situation. And that the grant of the special exception won't material increase traffic congestion or encourage traffic to use residential streets. And as I stated, the trucks currently use the Good Drive access, which is located down off the page here. And only the customers would be using trolley to access the property on a, for retail purposes. So the trucks don't currently impact, and we don't see them having an impact. And that's really what I think our largest impact could potentially be here to the neighborhood. And so that's pretty much solved with that access to Good Drive. So that is the last criteria for special exception is that we won't substantially impair the integrity of growing together. And I think that this is in concert with that proposal. I mean, it's an existing track. This is a minor alteration and expansion. As far as the variances go, section 279.1E parens 3A outlines the criteria that should be considered in granting the variance. The first one is about the uniqueness of the property. And in this case, it's a regularly shaped property. It's rectangular in nature, but it has very odd frontage characteristics. It has a frontage on Good Drive. We have frontage on Church Street. Our access comes from Trolley Avenue. We have a bunch of abandoned alleys through it. It's been, it's got almost 1,000-foot deep lot. I would say, like I said before, it's kind of shaped like an L. And it has the existing nonconformities, which I think truly lend to its uniqueness. It is almost paved tip to tail. And it's hemmed in. There's really very little opportunity for expansion here. And that's why when they had the opportunity to purchase the adjacent parcel, that's why they looked at it, because it's going to be one of the few opportunities. As you see, it's been 21 years since that last plan. Probably will be even longer potentially, because the opportunities to expand here are quite limited. So we think that there is some uniqueness in that regard. Because of that uniqueness, like I said, we have really very few opportunities to expand here. And, most of that site is being used for either truck circulation or outdoor storage of materials. And all has been needing to operate ever since Lesser has taken over it. So we don't think there are very many more opportunities than the area that we're showing on the plan right now. That the unnecessary hardship has not been created by the appellant. I don't know how long the property's been non-conforming, but it's been non-conforming a lot longer than before Lesser purchased it, and obviously back to when J.H. Brubaker owned it in 2001. So, and then if variance if authorized will not alter the essential character of the zone or permanently impair appropriate use to develop an adjacent property or be detrimental to public welfare. This is very similar to our special exception criteria, which, we feel that it's, for all intents and purposes, it should make the traffic circulation around the buildings on site a little bit better, which should potentially improve if there are any issues with Church Street. It would, solve any issues in that regard. I don't think that the character of the building or the character of the area will substantially change at all with this proposed expansion. There's really no increase in traffic that we would be anticipating, especially with trucks. And the last is that it would represent the minimum variance to afford relief. We think, I think it's a 6.6 or roughly 7% expansion of land area in total from 7.71 to the 8.23. And as we said, it was an 8.2% increase in building area. And we do think that that's, the minimum that we can propose here. It would also clean up there are some parking dimensional nonconformities that we talked about on the Lesser property right now where we're displacing those parking spaces. We have the existing setbacks with the 2 lots on the residential structure that would clean up. And I think there's an existing shed even in that setback up there too, that this would eliminate. So it does clean up some existing nonconformities as well. And allows them the opportunity to expand their business and keep competitive. So at that point, I would open up to any questions that you might have for me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hanson.
You mentioned something about the alleyways being abandoned, but I don't believe Wood Street is abandoned, is it completely?
To be honest with you, sir, I haven't been able to determine that either. They show up in various locations, but they didn't come up back with the survey. So we could dig into that a little bit more, but they might well still be active alleys.
And that would be one of my concerns, is because I know over the many years, through nobody's fault, there are a lot of alleys here in Landisville, Salunga area that are actually people think are abandoned, are not abandoned. So I would want one of those as a condition that would need to be cleaned up.
Okay.
My second question is, I'm looking at your plans, looking at what you want to do. And I agree with the special exception, you would need that. But if you were to not take those 2 properties, everything you want to do there, it looks like, having driven past the place the other day, you have plenty of room to do what you want to do without increasing the nonconformity of the lot. Yes, you would need to increase the nonconformity of the 5,000 square foot building. But if you left those 2 properties out of there, everything you wanted to do, you could do, because you're not increasing lot coverage.
I think that those parking spaces would be over the property line though. We would have to incorporate the property.
There are other places on the property that you could put them. Part of the requirements of the MPC is to grant you the least amount of variance you need to complete what you want to do.
I would say that the other places on the site though are more operational to where the trucks and the loading operations occur. And they're not areas that they would want to even have their, employees necessarily navigating, but these could be customers, these could be vendors. It could be a number of folks visiting. So we do think that that is the most logical place for us because it's closest to our other showroom area or the retail store area. But if you look at a lot of those other buildings, they're housing, they have a lot of, trucks coming up to them.
And this just may be me, but when you take those 2 properties and you join them up with the existing property, you're changing the character of the neighborhood, because now you're putting in parking lots in a residential neighborhood. So
And there's a parking lot right across the street and it's an alley as
I
well. So
understand
I
that.
mean, I'd say that it is going to put a parking lot there. We would have to put screening and buffering in for that parking lot if it was going to go in there. But we have, probably 7 acres of pavement right directly behind it that you can hit with a softball.
And I'm not saying that, and that's what I'm saying is, you could probably get rid of two of your variance requests, doing what you want to do without adding those two properties. There's plenty of room on the 7.71 acres to do what you want to do without adding those two properties. So now I go back to the MPC to grant you the minimum amount of variance that you need to do what you need to do, and that would take that property out of there.
Well, then what do you suggest happens with the property? A residence moves in there? Because right now there's no buffering between there. There's existing violations with the property line that runs down right through the middle of the property. You're looking at our cleaned up version. If you go to the prior exhibit, Beth, if you don't mind.
I understand what you're trying to do here, and I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here because I understand what you're trying to do. However, again, not current owner's fault. But I can tell you back in 2001, the zoning ordinance would have required buffering, and apparently nobody put it in between the residential sections and the commercial. And that's not the current owner's fault. That's before you. But if you look, you have that whole southern end of the property could all be parking along there.
But there's no buildings there that have people in them. They have lumber in them.
So
I
they got,
mean, when you put parking down, you have to have accessible spaces and they have to be the closest to the building. I'm not gonna argue with you. I just don't agree with you.
okay. Do you have any current signage on the lot urging people to exit the property through Good Drive?
I'm not sure if I understood your question.
Customers come on the lot, employees, are they encouraged to exit the lot through Good Drive? Or do they use Church Street?
Is my understanding, the only people that use Good Drive are the delivery truck drivers. We can ask someone, I think Mike Viazzi.
Mostly trucks out of a Good Drive, but employees can certainly go out there and customers can go out there.
Mike?
Mr. Elazi, can you answer that question?
Muted.
There you go.
You guys
Yes,
can't
we
hear.
have, I got, do you have me now?
We're speaking, you guys can't hear us. We've been talking, you guys can't hear what we're saying.
No, I can't hear them.
Beth, this is Cindy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay,
This
I
is
can
Mike.
hear that. I can hear Mike.
It's coming
For some
through.
reason, not coming into the meeting room.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Can you guys hear us yet or not?
Can you hear that?
I can barely, I
Can you put your mic close to the speak?
Can you hear me now? This is my,
We're getting all kinds of feedback.
If you can hear him,
Can you type?
can I type?
We can see, we can read what you're.
Oh my goodness.
I don't see where you can type any chat information or any context back and forth on this app.
No, it sounds.
Beth, can you hear me?
I hear you, but you're coming through the laptop.
On the main computer, is the speaker set on Zoom? On the bottom left,
Okay, the mute. What are we looking for?
not click the up arrow there and see what it says for speaker.
Echo canceling speakerphone is checked.
And have the IT guy on staff here at the meeting. Yeah, good thing I'm not on the phone.
I put that on mute. But this.
You could would.
You need to unmute the meeting room as well.
Nate?
That's because you're mute, the township's muted.
That's Cindy.
That's Cindy. She's muted.
The one they want is the guy in the middle. Yeah, Mike. Yeah, he's on, he's not muted.
Yeah, I have here.
Type an answer in the chat. Yeah, and that's, just type an answer in the chat.
Beth, tell him to type the answer in the chat.
Can you type the answers
Yeah.
in the chat?
Yes, I can, yes.
Yeah. Read it in the record. Motion that we post on there all the time. I know that you can't come in through the drop. You come in through drop. The customer employee, the customer, or employees are the customer. If you might need to open the chat. Like when Chris Reader.
Okay, Good Drive is used mostly by trucks, but also customers and employees.
So basically what he's saying there is you do not have signs directing people to use Good Drive as opposed to Church Street. If we were to make, if this board was to make that a condition of granting your variance and special exception request, would that be agreeable to you?
To have signage that directs them to use Good Drive.
Yes.
I don't think that that's a problem.
Okay.
Agreeable.
Agreeable, Mike says. I'm sorry.
And you did say that,
Hold on one second before you do that. Jason,
Yes.
the response that is given on the screen, which was in the chat, should we read that so Cheryl gets it on the record?
We can, I mean, in past hearings where we've had chat, we've actually made that part of the record if it proceeded to court, but I mean, it might be best if it's actually on the transcript.
Okay, so at this point, Jason, would you read the response to Mr. Hansen's question that is shown on the screen from the chat from Mr. I'm not sure who's.
Is it Mike Viazzi? Okay, Mike Viazzi, his chat entry was good drive is used mostly by trucks, but also customers and employees.
And I think he also responded to my,
And right, and your question about whether condition, would they be agreeable to condition that they provide signage to direct people to use the good drive entrance, his response was agreeable.
Okay, thank you, Jason. Okay, Mr. Hanson,
I'm
you still have
done.
the floor.
Thank you.
You're done. Other questions?
One,
Mr. Bingham.
and I apologize if you actually already answered this and I missed it. Do you anticipate any change in the number of employees as a result of?
We should have Mike or Kate, someone type that. I don't believe we do, but yeah, no is the answer.
Along with that kind of a partial thing with what was being asked before, you might want to think about an internal traffic flow that minimizes difficulty with incoming trucks and customers and keeps traffic separated
Okay,
with signage.
okay.
Mr. Kyle.
One question, I know that you would look at this in the land development plan process, but stormwater management for the proposed new parking lot area, would that be underground?
It would
Or
almost
how would you-
have to be.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any other options, right?
I mean,
Okay.
there's a storm line that runs down that easement that you see there through the middle of the property. Area here that kind of runs down to the retirement community below us and into a basin. We used to have a basin off-site a while ago, but I don't know what exactly happened to that. So we'll probably be looking into investigating all that fun stuff if we get to that point. But yes, we would probably be underground.
Okay, thank you.
so, and you know, the township requires you to propose a plan to maintain that and maintenance that underground.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? I got several. Ricky, I hope I pronounced that right.
Yes.
One, you stated that you want to increase the size of the property. And then you indicate that by increasing the size of the property, you will decrease the overall lot coverage by approximately 2%. Is that correct?
That's correct mathematically,
Okay.
yes.
The ordinance says that when you increase any of the lot coverage, it is to be of the original track. So by adding those two lots, you're actually expanding the original tract, correct?
Yes, and that was one of the variances that we were seeking.
Also, the non-conforming use presently is like 55,000 square feet over what is allowed on that property, on the original lot, correct?
Yes.
So you keep saying in your testimony that it's in technical terms. Well, to me, in technical terms, what you're saying is that theoretically, you could go to approximately 30,000 more square feet on that lot to be within the requirement of the 50%, correct?
I guess from a percentages standpoint, that would probably be somewhere, we would be entitled to 30. We're proposing 5-ish, so we're looking at, but we don't have a proposal for another 25, and they would have to take paved area out of play, which, if there was any building going on the site in the future, which we haven't discussed, it would be to cover anything that's sitting outside, so it's not exposed to the elements. But we don't see that need, or that hasn't been discussed. But it's an accurate statement nonetheless, yes.
So literally, the property as it sits today is exceeding the allowable rate by 55,000 square feet.
For the current VC district regulations, yes, sir.
Um, the two lots where you plan to put your parking on, is that pervious or impervious surface?
Right now, we've assumed it to be impervious area, regardless of whether it was porous paving or not. We haven't gotten into design, so right now we've assumed it to be like a standard, impervious.
So
bituminous.
literally, you are increasing the overall lot coverage of the original lot and the add-on by whatever those two parking areas are going to be.
If you were to look at the original 0.51 area to what we are showing on there, it would be at around 62%. So yes, it would be 12% over that 50% threshold. We did provide that calc, so I did know that one.
If this board would agree with your request for the variances and the special exception, would you be agreeable to a condition that the property owner and future property owners, as part of the condition, would not come back in front of this board or future boards to expand the non-conforming use?
To see if someone's gonna type an answer for you.
That's fine.
That would
Mr. Hur, would that be for everything or
Casey,
just?
maybe.
Excuse me?
I said Casey Lezer, he's on the line. He's the president and owner. He's the namesake. So I think he would be the one, or Don Nickerson could answer that, or yeah, no further expansion plans on the site. That's from Casey. So that would
Well-
be, we would agree to that, yes.
Again,
We need to read that.
Jason, can you read that into the record, please?
Yes, the other response from, is it
Casey Lezer.
Casey Lezer, is we have no further expansion plans on this site.
Okay, you have no further expansion plans on this site today. I am asking the question for the future. Jason?
And the response was no plans.
No future.
So,
plans.
so again, I will ask my question. Would you agree to the condition that there would be no future expansion of the non-conforming use of total lot coverage and increasing the dimensional nonconformities? Yes or no?
Can you hear?
Yes.
So the response is yes, as long as if something happens to an existing building, they can be built. Parentheses, fire, comma, tornado, comma, et cetera. Next for, and then he says rebuilt.
If the rebuild is in the same footprint as was destroyed, which hopefully nothing would take place as you have there a tornado or fire. Yes, I understand that. I am talking about a further expansion, and I think your answer meets that. Thank you.
Mr. Hurd, can I interrupt you?
Mr. Hanson.
And I agree with what Mr. Hurd just asked there for a simple reason. There comes a point in time when you have to start asking for these many variances that maybe it's just time to move on to another property.
That it? Anything else, gentlemen? Jason, questions of the applicant?
Yeah, and I will just note that he did enter another communication. He said, yes, same footprint.
Okay.
And before I forget, we should have these photos marked as applicants exhibit 2.
He was going to give you, I think he was going to give you another set of pictures if you need them. He was going to give you another set of pictures. Maybe. Yeah.
Okay, and sir, your application and the question was, has this property been involved in a previous zoning hearing? And the response was no. I asked the zoning officer who had to ask the director of planning, but it appears there were 3 cases previously
Okay.
for this property. It was case number 198, case number 619, and case number 974. I don't know that we have the ability to pull up those cases right now. But even though when you have a nonconformity and the zoning ordinance changes, that nonconformity is grandfathered. If there are conditions of a previous zoning hearing board decision, those conditions stay even when the zoning ordinance is amended. So, I mean, I don't know that the zoning hearing board has the ability right now to know what those conditions are. Do you happen to?
I don't know. I'm sorry. I
Jason,
but I understand that you might want to see that and you might want us to.
that would affect, I think that could, depending on what those conditions are, they could affect the board's decision.
Right, I mean, there could be a condition that there be no further expansion, for
Right.
example. And if that was the case, then, I think this board would be constrained to.
Would it be better for us to take the 45 days on this to make a decision so we can see what those decisions?
I think it would be advisable.
I don't want to include testimony.
Well, the board could just continue the hearing, leave the record open. And the applicant would have to return for the next month's hearing.
Right.
When's
Because
next
whatever
month?
is on those cases could raise more questions.
Right.
Okay.
Is the next hearing the 21st of August?
Yeah, it'd be 21st.
All right, then I don't have a conflict. I'll be around. If we want to just continue, I understand. Makes sense, so.
But we'll finish what we need to do tonight and then go from there. Jason, you still have the floor.
Okay, So in your fourth variance request under 6.6G, you where you under requested, it says, while the expansion does not create any new dimensional nonconformities. I don't think that that's accurate. I think you are in fact creating a new dimensional nonconformity in terms of the building area.
You're absolutely right, sir. I was speaking to lot coverage, but you're right. But building coverage, you're right, it does go up.
Okay, so you would need a variance from that same section also to cover the increase in building area.
We did request that.
Right, you
I believe.
requested a variance because you're exceeding the building area, but I'm just saying you also need a variance because an increase, a expansion of a nonconformity specifically says you can't increase you can't increase the dimensional nonconformities, which you are. So your request would have to be a variance from section 6.6G because of the increase of the building area. And I don't know, maybe it's not clear that that's what you asked for, but I think that request needs to be made.
So so we requested 6.6G. And you just are asking me to clarify that we are increasing a dimensional
Yeah,
nonconformity?
everything you referenced here is about lot coverage, but there's an increase in the building area as well.
There is an increase in the building area. Yes, you're right.
Okay, so that just needs to be mentioned as well, that you're requesting a variance from that section because of the increased building area.
That is correct. We are requesting that because of the increase in the building area. And I did forget to mention that. I apologize.
And are
It goes
you,
from 61,866 to 66,966
okay.
square feet.
Are you planning on, so when I guess you'll have a land development plan with the township, if the board approves this?
If this was if this was approved, we recognize we'll have to go through land development and, that whole process.
And would that land development plan include a lot add-on to add? the
Yeah,
two
it would
lots?
it would have to be a lot add-on and along with the land development plan, subdivision land development, basically.
Okay, and you mentioned that when the question was raised about why parking couldn't be placed in other locations, you mentioned, well, you have to have accessible parking that's close to the building where the customers are. So which building is it that the customers?
Well,
use?
customers or the people that are using the building, I would say. So right now, when we have, if you go to the second exhibit, you'll see we are showing parking accessible spaces towards the front of that existing residence structure. And that residence structure is something that they would consider to use for, I don't know, maybe office area, it might get repurposed, for, some sort of ancillary office function. So that's why we were showing, it's also the area that has the most conducive grades.
Okay, but
Whether that is there or whether they determine that to be something different during land development, but I'm just saying that the concentration of parking in that area is more where we see the customers and employees.
okay, but does that provide, I mean, the customers won't actually be entering that building that's still on the lot, right?
No,
That's office building.
the customer building is primarily over here.
Okay,
And they have about 8 parking spaces there and one of them is handicapped.
okay.
Does that kind of answer the question?
That answers the question. Thank you.
The primary building where I think customers are and that I've seen activity that we meet are in this building.
Or on, just to follow up with Mr. Hess's comment, are you saying that the house that is on the two lots is going to be retained, plus you're going to add the parking on those lots?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hanson.
Yeah, and as Mr. Hess was asking, there's nothing in the township ordinance requires you to have parking close to where they're gonna use it. You can have parking anywhere on the property. And that's what I'm saying is you could request 2 less variances here by not even adding that property to the 7.71 existing acres. Excuse me.
I understand what you're saying, but we are looking to get some more parking on this site as well, and not, not having them in a location where they're not going to be usable to the person that operates the facility just doesn't make any sense. So, and the township might not have a specific ordinance, but when you go for a building permit and you go through the building code review, they absolutely, I've had to alter land development plans to move my parking spaces to be almost in front of a building. So I'm just saying that that's a fact it's happened to me personally. So, I mean.
Okay.
Jason, you still had the floor when we interrupted you.
I think those were all my questions. Thank you.
Okay. Beth, do you have any questions? Okay, is there anyone in the audience and or on the internet have any questions for the witness, the applicant? Seeing none in either case. Is there any, sir, thank you. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience or on through the internet that has any comments to make at this time? Either pro or con to the application? Okay, again, I see none. Before you step down, sir, as part of the discussion, we are going to continue this case until next month. There are a couple things you're gonna look up the cases, the prior cases that will be before the board. 2, that variance requested you and the solicitor were talking about. So you should have a modification to your application. And 3, Mr. Hanson request, and correct me if I'm wrong, that in the application on page 5, it shows a sample. It's on 4 and 5, excuse me. Shows a sample of what the ordinance says, what you're proposing, and what the variance request is spelled out, which would be just a little clearer and concise. You have your explanation in your application in tonight's testimony, but he has requested that also for next meeting. Understood?
Yep.
Okay, anything else, gentlemen? Okay, at this time, we will not take administrative notice of the previous cases until we find out what they are, but we will admit into evidence applicants exhibit 1 and 2. 1 being Brubaker final subdivision plans, 5 pages, and 2, the pitchers, 3. If nothing else, gentlemen, I'll ask for a motion on case number 2462 to continue to our next regularly scheduled meeting, which will be August 21st.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Hanson. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kyle. Discussion, gentlemen? Seeing none, Mr. Hanson,
In favor.
Mr. Kyle,
In favor.
Mr. Bingham,
In favor.
and I also vote in favor. Case number 2462 has been continued until the next regularly scheduled meeting of this board.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sure, are you okay? Okay, Beth, next case, please.
Next case is case number 2463, Richard Russell, 127 Pinnacle Point Drive, seeking a variance to the minimum side yard setback.
Okay, is Mr. Russell here or his representative? You are. Okay. Okay, before we go any further, is there anyone in the audience and or on through the internet that wants to be a party to this case? Would you please sign an entry of appearance form? Beth, do you have them? Anyone else? We'll just take a couple seconds.
Good. I'll be right back. On my water.
Okay.
Make me talk so loud.
And you're his spouse, correct?
You must not have paid their air conditioning bill.
For home.
Yeah, you don't need to be you don't need to be a party
Hmm?
if you're, yeah. 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 She can still speak. She doesn't need to be a party.
We'll wait just a couple more seconds because I lost Mr. Hanson.
Ran away.
He wants to refill his water bottle.
Yeah.
We have to wait. Didn't realize she was still filling out the form.
Yep. That looks familiar.
Yeah, I should have done that.
He didn't say. Jason will check it out.
So, Mr. Chairman, Viviana Edmonds wishes to be a party. Her address is 145 Pinnacle Point Drive, Lancaster, PA 17601. And ma'am, Ms. Edmonds, how far from the subject property is your property? Close? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Any objections to her being a party to the proceeding?
That's it, just the one?
There's just one.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Russell.
Good evening. Hopefully, this won't take as long as the first hearing. My name's Richard Russell. I live at 127 Pinnacle Point Drive with my wife, Evantina Russell, my two children, Mariana and Evelyn. They're obviously both here and they will not be testifying today, but the whole point of this matter was obviously the zoning. My attorney is here and she'll give a brief statement and then I will explain the reason why we're here tonight.
I guess
Please.
Yeah. Jennifer Russell Spence. I'm here to assist Mr. Russell.
Yeah,
That not-
either that or take it out and hold it. It's just, you gotta be fairly close to them so everybody can hear you. It's
Okay.
on.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Can you repeat that?
Jennifer Russell Spence. And basically, Mr. Russell and Mrs. Russell are looking to expand their deck. They submitted the plan to the township. And their home, it's a townhome that's all homes are connected on the street. And the deck to their immediate neighbor actually has the very same extension that they're planning on doing. They were advised by the township that if they chose to extend their existing deck, it would be permissible by grandfathered, it would be grandfathered in. However, that's not feasible because the existing deck is made out of wood. The wood is rotting. It's not safe to do that. So what they've done is they, through their contractor, have, they've acquired Trex deck that would be exactly matching their neighbors. As I said, these homes are connected. This would be, this expansion will be seamless as far as it would actually improve the value of the homes in the neighborhood, their neighbors specifically. I believe as part of the filing, you do have some, their neighbors have signed that they are in agreement with the plans that the Russells are planning to do. I do have marked for this evening as an additional exhibit. They do have Mr. Dale Musser, who has additionally signed. I believe he was away on vacation at the time that this was submitted. He is the neighbor that has the extended deck that's directly next to the Russells.
Okay. Okay, just, would you show that again, Miss? That one there, okay.
He lives at 125, correct?
Correct.
Okay. With the diagram that's up on the screen, just so I understand what we're talking about. What is showing as existing homes is in white. Surrounding that is hashtag border. What is that hashtag? or a slant, or not a hashtag, it's a slant.
Outside wall of the house.
That's what I think.
Well, these are blueprints from the township. These homes were built in 86, and this is, I would assume is just the border of the development or the townhomes. I really can't answer that,
Okay.
sir.
With that, go ahead, sorry.
With that being said, how their deck goes here, our deck is half of this right now. So we just wanted to expand it out, and obviously to our lack of, I guess, judgment to go through that, we went with the contractor. We went with about 5 different contractors. Not that deck here, but another deck right here is extended out as well. So when we showed him the project, he assumed that we could build it out that far, as long as we weren't making it any wider than what it is.
Okay. But again, just so I understand this picture, the proposed deck, and again, there's a white blank center part and then hashed or slanted lines around the deck, which it says proposed deck 16 by 20. That's all inclusive of that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The deck currently stands 8 by 20. So
Okay.
half of that, obviously.
Okay. Ms. Spence, I interrupted you, but I just needed to clarify.
No, that's absolutely fine. So I do have this additional exhibit, which I can hand up to Mr. Hess.
Did you, excuse me, Cheryl, did you mark it?
It's marked for tonight as a applicant's exhibit 1, I believe.
Right, and this was, I think this was also attached to the application packets that you have. It's a,
The addition now, Mr.
oh, within the, okay.
They are the one that has that existing deck right next to me.
Okay, so it has it's the same as in the packet, except it has a new
Right.
signature for Dale Musser,
Okay.
Dale Musser, 125.
So, I mean, essentially, that's the applicant's argument here before you. This is an expansion. It's that other people in this neighborhood have, the HOA is agreeable to this. And
In fact, the HOA approved the plan before we even moved on. And then once we told the contractor that the HOA approved our plan, he proceeded to move on with the application from the township. And that's when we found out it was denied. So then that's, we wanted to, do the application to see about the exception, because again, like my attorney said, it's not going to devalue the property. It's not going to be anything different than what already exists. They were saying if we were trying to expand off of that from 20 feet, it would have to be down to 10. That would change the dimensions of every deck from the entire comp, and I'm sure the HOA wouldn't even approve that. So that's where we're at tonight.
So I have a question.
Mr. Hanson?
Your property width is 28 feet, correct?
The current deck, yes.
28 feet wide.
The deck is 20 feet wide, yes.
Okay. Why can't you stay at 20 feet wide?
We're staying at
Or
20.
actually, why can't you go down to 18 feet? Then you don't need any variance.
Well, the only problem is our doors. We have 2 double doors that the one door is almost exactly to the end of that 20 feet, where if we break it down a little bit, it will cut off one of the doors. This is
Okay.
once again, when they built it in 86 or whenever it was, it wasn't to the code. So all of them were like that, where they're 20 feet.
I can guarantee you that every one of those decks is illegal.
And that's
And
what they said.
It concerns me that the HOA is saying approving decks that are illegal to the township requirements.
And again, sir, that's why we were kind of, when they approved it, we didn't think anything else was going to, happen.
based on that approval, they did purchase material to begin construction. So they were very surprised by the township denying the request. And so they already have the material, they're ready to start. And, you know, based on the fact that the HOA approved and it was in line with the other decks, albeit the illegal decks perhaps in the neighborhood, that was,
I mean, at this point, the decks will remain. However, the township could legally go out and inspect every one of those decks. And if there's any issues with them, they could condemn those decks at this point. So my issue goes back to the HOA here doing something that they have no authority to do by approving decks that don't even meet township regulations.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
Besides the zoning request, which is before us, I'll ask you another question. I presume, Mr. Russell, you've gotten a building permit? Your contractor has?
Yes.
I would also contend that the HOA, as Mr. Hanson was saying, in improving these previous decks, those decks may not only not meet the zoning, but they may not meet the statewide building code.
And that's quite possible. I mean, because if
Well-
you would walk on my deck right now, you might not want to.
Yeah,
I
can
can't
understand
put
it.
my family on that deck.
I can understand that. That's not what I'm getting at. I'm just getting that you're following the requirements of the law. What I'm saying is, and I'm following up with Mr. Hanson, is somebody should talk to the HOA because theoretically they could go back and tell those other people to remove the decks.
I mean,
That's
that's something that would,
Yeah.
I don't want to cause that.
There's a safety issue.
Oh, agreed.
And, I don't expect the township staff to be what I call Gestapo agents that run around the township and peek in people's yards and that to make sure everybody's doing what's right. Part of the requirements of law is government, the applicants, neighbors, all are involved in this thing. And for the HOA to be saying things that even the plans probably show that you only have whatever width of your building is, your
It's townhome, it's right on top.
just to say to you, Mr. Russell, you can build this deck, don't worry about anybody else. I don't want to be the one sitting here, which I won't do with you because you're in front of us, but coming back later on to say, you have to remove that deck. So I would suggest, and this is me speaking as an individual and not part of the board, that when you talk to your neighbors, they at least talk to or get in compliance with at least the building code. Because if something happens there, that's a problem, especially now that they know they're in violation of the building code. Now, that's off script, and I know that's not what you're here for, but
Right, and that's the thing with having our young children, our deck, when it's built, is gonna be safe.
right. And
What is there now is not.
But I've been on this board for 40-some years. I don't remember anybody coming in here for what you're coming in here for today. That's why I asked.
Well,
The
that's
township.
why I asked too earlier. I was like, have these been done without approval? And if they are, is someone, or they're getting rubber stamped by somebody that doesn't look at it?
Well, there's no record of any permits being issued. I had that checked out and again, like I said, you're going through the right process. I have no problem with that. And you're doing it right by getting the building code and because the statewide building code sets the standards for what decks need to be built to in order that, if you fall through the deck, that's your fault. You're old enough and to know better, but your children, they go out, something happens. it's there. I interrupted Mr. Hanson, sorry.
Mr. Russell. I see on this side, you're looking to build within 2 feet, 4 inches of the property line. What I couldn't make out is what this dimension is here.
It's even tighter. I don't know what it is, but I know our deck is closer to 125 than it is to 129. So 1.6, I think it might say, I'm not sure, but
I think it's 6 inches, but I couldn't tell.
yeah, it's tight. I mean, we're like literally right next to each other. Their deck, I mean, I was just out there looking at it today and I was like, literally we're as if we live together.
My other.
But they're great people, so.
Where did you say your sliding glass doors?
There's sliding or there's one here and there's one here.
Okay.
So this one, like I said, if you brought it in here or even here, or you bring it in just a little bit, they're double doors. So even a little bit of space, because that's why I did look at those. I was like, well, we could, but the way it's built now, they only have one door, but we have two. So most of them have two. I don't know what happened on theirs, but they have one.
Are they French doors where both open or are they sliding?
No, they're sliding
Only
doors.
one side opens.
One side opens. I mean, you could slide it. I'm not sure exactly that door. It slides this way, I believe. Towards the outer edge, the outer sides of is where they slide open.
So they slide towards the outer edge.
Right, that each one pulls towards the.
So if you were to put the edge of the deck at the edge.
That's, I mean, no, they slide into the home, but you're stepping out to the outer edge of the glass towards the edge of the deck.
And I understand what you're saying. The question is, can you move either one of these sides in at all? So they're not as tight as they are?
No, I don't think we could. Because then I'm not sure how, I mean, I would have to talk to the contractor, but he seemed like that was what we had to do for small. 20 feet was what we needed to do, keep it the way it was. Right.
My next question is, I'm assuming these are like most townhomes and have a lower floor underneath the main floor. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What's the height of this deck?
The height of the deck. Oh, man, 15 feet. I can't answer that off the top of my head because I didn't think of anything from
Doesn't go
below.
over 20 feet, does it?
Over 20 feet? No. But I mean,
The highest point doesn't go over 20 feet.
no.
With the railing and everything?
No.
Okay. Because accessory structures like this can be no higher than 20 feet.
Right. It definitely doesn't go over that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We keep interrupting you. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I don't have anything else to add. I think the board basically has the essence of the applicant's argument.
Did you say that the decks are pretty much all on the property lines like that?
In our area, they are. Now, there are some areas that are in the development that are a little more space. But ours, probably the ones across the street, maybe Miss Edmonds would be the same way. We're like on top of each other.
My other issue, when you put decks that close, because people tend to put grills on decks, it becomes a higher fire hazard for jumping.
One thing I will note is, whereas other decks in the neighborhood are wood structures, the Russells are building, but they are using the all-weather truck stacks, which is more durable and.
It's more durable, but you ever seen Trex once it starts on fire?
Well, I'm not necessarily arguing that it won't catch on fire, but I am just making that point that it is.
I can tell you from 30 years as a firefighter, it burns just as well as regular. Matter of fact, it actually burns better than treated lumber does.
Well, we'll have to do away with them then.
Okay.
Other questions, gentlemen? Jason, questions, the applicant?
Yeah, so first of all, I did blow up the exhibit, so it is 1 foot 6 inches from the lower property boundary there. Cause I couldn't read it either, but that's what it is. And so your current deck is the same width, right? It's 20 feet.
Yes,
Okay,
it's just 8 feet.
it's just,
Length.
it only goes 8 feet out.
Right.
From the house, okay. And the setback is 5 feet.
Fine.
That, okay. Okay, that's all I had, thanks.
Okay, Beth,
No question.
So
Mr. Hanson?
what you're looking for is 3 feet, 6 inches on the, for lack of a better term, the south side of the deck you're encroaching into the setback, correct?
Correct.
And you're looking to encroach 2 feet, 8 inches onto the north side into the setback.
Correct.
Okay. Anyone in the audience or on the internet, questions of the applicant? Question? We'll give you time in a second. Thank you. I see none on the internet nor in the audience, so thank you.
Thank you.
Now, anyone have any comments, either pro or con, to this application? Up, you gotta go to the microphone and you gotta give us your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Vivian Edmonds. I live at 145 Pinnacle Point Drive, Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is several doors down from the Russells. So I had my husband measure our deck. I know it's not their deck, but the height is 9 feet, 10 inches, 10.5 inches. I do have pictures of, what is it called? Like our deck from like, you can see how they're double doors, or if I can show that to you. So you have like so you can see what they're talking about when they say double doors.
Sure, if you could, sure, that'd be great.
So how would I have it on my phone?
Did you just bring the phone to us?
Sure.
We won't add it as,
No, but I just want to give you like an example, like, so this is what it looks like. This is my home. So you see, this is the height, right? So this is the basement, right?
You have 2 sets of doors also.
Correct. On the bottom, I have the 2 set of doors, but the previous owners, and I'll pass this along to you. On the top portion, my unit has 1 bay window and the other set is a double door. And I have my neighbor across the street, I had her, she doesn't have a deck because ours is on a slant versus hers is against another place, so she doesn't have a basement like we do. So I had her send us a picture of hers, and she has the double doors as well. So on this picture, it shows the double doors on my neighbors across the street that does not have the basement.
yeah, it might be right on the door. Yeah. On the window.
So then what happens with the deck is like, it's like the door for them, and then they have a little bit of space, right? For each side, but there's no way to enclose it.
Do you mind showing the slip?
Sure.
please? Thank you.
So this, okay, this is the one across the street. My neighbor across the street, they don't have a basement. So it's just the top floor and second floor. So that's what they have. Can I see? So that's their door, right? But I'll show you my house. This is my house. So you see, I have double doors there. And then instead of for me, I have that door, but mine has a bay window, and that's where the Russells will have the double doors. So if you see on that, their double doors will be a little bit more open. So all you have is that little bit.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
No, and I'm
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Hanson, anyone? Jason? None. Anyone in the audience or the internet? Questions of the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else?
so my question will be, if you guys decide to do away with the decks, is like, what will happen to those to going out like in the second floor? Like, we're just be stuck with those doors and can't leave.
We would not. They can build a deck. What we're here to decide is if they're allowed to encroach into the side yard setbacks.
Okay,
So they could build a deck as long as they stay within, outside the encroachment of the side yard setbacks, there'd be no issue.
mhm.
But they're here because they're encroaching into the side yard or the side property lines, if that makes sense.
Like, would it be like, I'm sorry, where's the pointer? Is this it? Where you point? The green one? So if you're talking about this addition right here,
See, if you look right here where the edge of their deck is,
uh-huh,
the zoning requirements requires them to be 5 feet off the property line. The edge of their deck is only going to be 2 feet 4 inches on this side and 1 foot 6 inches on this side. If they were going to stay 5 feet off the property line on both sides, they wouldn't even need to be here. Does that make sense?
so they're, okay. So I just thought they were just coming forward, right? Or they're just actually, okay,
They're going out on both sides.
okay, got you. I was just, my question.
I mean, they could build, if they wanted to, they could extend that deck out 30, 40 feet from the house because they're not even close to the rear yard. But because they're pushing it this way, they're getting into the side yard setbacks.
Gotcha. Thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. Okay. Seeing no one else, anything else you want to add at this time? Before we conclude testimony?
No, but I just did want to add that the existing deck is the 20 feet. It's not like we trying to push it out even anymore. We just want to go out. But that concludes everything. Sorry.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, at this time, we will conclude testimony in case number 2463. We will admit into evidence beside the written and oral testimony applicant's exhibit number 1, which is an updated version of what was part of the application dated June 16th with neighbors stipulating that they had no problem with the Russells putting in the new deck. With that, gentlemen, I will listen to a motion in case number 24. Oh, excuse me, before that, there is no administrative notice to take into account on the record for this case. So with that, I will listen to a motion in case number 2463, if there is one this time.
Mr. Chairman, in case number 2463, make a motion in the cases of, for Richard Russell for property located at 127 Pinnacle Point Drive in Lancaster, PA 17601. Make a motion to grant a variance to section 270-3.6 E2 to allow for the deck to encroach into the side yard setback 3 feet 6 inches, leaving a gap of 1 foot 6 inches to the property line on the north side. And on the south side to, I'm sorry, that should have been the south side. On the north side, to encroach into the side yard setback by 2 feet 4 inches, leaving them 2 feet 8 inches. And our standard conditions.
Okay, what's your motion?
And our standard conditions.
Yeah. Motion by Mr. Hanson in case number 2463 for the property at 127 Pinnacle Drive, Lancaster, PA, to grant the variance to section 270-3.6 E2 for the encroachment of the deck to the rear of the property. On the south side, the encroachment to be 3.6 inches, leaving 1.6 inches to the property line. On the north side, the encroachment would be 2.4, 2 feet 4 inches, leaving a 2.2 feet 8 inch to the side yard.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's leaving 2 feet 4 inches. The encroachment is 2 feet 8 inches.
Yes,
Yes, you're
I
correct.
had that backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry. With the standard conditions. With that correction, is that what you had?
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
I would second that motion.
Second by Mr. Bingham. Discussion.
Yes.
Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Russell, normally I probably would be against this type of encroachment into the side yard. However, because of what you said and testified where your sliding doors are, I understand why you need to go the width that you need to go. However, I would say to the township that in the future, if anybody else is going to replace their deck, they should have pictures of the back of the house so we can actually see what they're testifying to. Also, I would suggest that the township, just about everything in that is zoned in the township is covered in Article 5, except for decks. The fences are in there, accessory structures are in there, no decks. I would suggest that the township add something into Article 5. That's it.
I appreciate that, sir.
One comment I have, I agree with what Mr. Hanson has said, but one of the other reasons that I am considering voting in favor of this is since the existing decks, which were built by the developer, whether it was they're legal or not, you're not expanding into the setbacks, which that makes a big difference to me. I understand that these properties have 0 lot line, and you are limited to that. I also understand that whatever reason how it came about, that you're request was not approved by the township. I do, want to commend the township for picking up on that instead of allowing you to proceed and then later on find out for some unknown reason that you don't meet the requirements. I am not a big supporter of the theory that instead of asking for approval up front, come back in and ask for, relief later on. So I do commend you for following what is stated in the law. So again, thank you for that.
Appreciate that.
Anything else, gentlemen? Seeing none, the motion you have in front of us, Mr. Hanson,
In favor.
Mr. Kyle, in favor, Mr. Bingham,
In favor.
and I also vote in favor. Your request has been granted. Please, work with the township as far as the building code. And
Thank you very much.
And
I
I
will
would
do that.
I would also suggest that you might want to tell your neighbors that they should, and even if they weren't the ones who put the decks up, they're the ones living there now under that. Again, you have two nice children.
Thank you.
I don't want to see anything happen to them or any other children in the township. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One of the things I'm gonna strongly suggest here, and it doesn't necessarily have to be you, but somebody should go back to the HOA
Yeah.
and explain to them, the township makes the rules, not them.
Will do.
Thank you very much.
One quick question, as far as I know at the beginning, you mentioned about the written order from today. Is that to be expected in 4 weeks or is that?
By the next meeting, we will have it in writing, but,
By
since-
law, we're allowed 45 days.
yeah, since we give the verbal here, there's no opposition to it. Nobody filed. If, contractor wants to proceed, go ahead with
Okay,
that.
just
Uh,
wanted to check because they're ready. So just we
Yeah,
don't want to run
well,
afoul now after going.
The MPC says immediately, but the courts have said you can take additional time because if you want the case to be overturned, tell me that I have to tell Beth she has to stay here all night and type it up.
No.
No, we like the ruling.
Yeah, it's one of those things that in 72, I don't know what the legislators were thinking about, but saying that the written decision had to be done within 24 hours, that's asking a lot of staff. Yep, thank you. Cheryl, how are you? You're fine? Okay, next case, please, Beth.
Next case is number 2464, Jesus Gonzalez and Lisalba Gomez Diaz, 1614 Ridgeview Road, seeking a special exception for a family daycare.
Okay, is Mr. Gonzalez or Ms. Gomez Diaz here or their representative? Okay, come forward, please. Now, is anyone in the audience and or the internet want to be parties to this case? Okay, we have an entry of appearance form. Anyone else? Did you sign an entry of appearance form yet? Anyone on the internet? She
Over
has it
here.
over here. Miss, she has one.
Pen. That whole previous case is because they're townhomes, which literally means that they share a common wall. And there's no, the boundary line is just a line down the middle of that concrete block wall.
Yeah,
You're
zero
gonna
lines.
encroach in that no matter what the hell you do.
Yeah.
You wanna plant a rose bush, you're probably.
be on somebody, doing
It's, yeah, it's hard.
That's the problem with zero lot lines.
Yeah. I was on the board of supervisors when that development was approved. And I gotta tell you, we did not think about any of that.
It's hard to
And
imagine all
probably
the
should have.
unforeseen circumstances that happen over
And, you know,
decades.
a lot of this falls into the thing that we say about other zoning questions. The guy that's coming and wanting to put in a deck did not create.
He
the
didn't create the issue, he's
situation.
trying to do the right thing.
The situation.
John.
Yeah.
Remember the problem you guys as supervisors created for us in the 55 hours meeting?
Well, what
Well,
about
when
that?
it was down here off of Harrison Pike, the 55 hours meeting. There was 0 lot line.
Yeah.
So people started coming in on patios and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, because why, so close.
Yeah, well, and the back of it. She's still filling hers out.
The bad one is I'm also a member of and an officer of a homeowners association in another state in Delaware. But, yeah, we had a 2-unit, one over the other, and the ones upstairs wanted to tear everything out and change it to another pattern. And the people downstairs were terribly afraid that there were gonna be water leaks and all kinds of problems. And that we got into a real problem.
The one was an attorney. And she was like, she can't believe this. Yeah, read it. And you're an attorney, and you're advising people.
You gotta read the whole document. You really do.
Yeah, if you're married, you're the only one. You guys, you both live in this like this. You know, it's like going anymore. Just put, let's just. Manual, the manual has to be that big. There's something wrong with that car.
Especially if it's a used car.
I'd be curious, you're talking about the HOA stuff. I still need to report.
Yes.
That your pen?
Municipal approval.
Yeah, you don't. Well, you gotta read the HOA. You also have to
We
read.
can say it approves our requirement.
No.
And that's the first thing that should be looking for.
Keep that going. Jason, you ready?
1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have 2 entry of appearances. The first one is it Peter H. Byrne, okay. Byrne, okay. And your address is 1625 Ridgeview Avenue. And how close to the subject property are you? Okay. So that is pretty close. That's usually would be considered close enough, I think, to get party status. Do you have any objection to there being a party? Okay. The second one is it Hung Win? I'm reading your names. Is it Hung Win? Win? And Tamara Day. Okay. And your address is 1617 Wilson Avenue? Okay. How close is that to this subject property? Okay. So they're adjoining property owners. They are also close enough to be a party. Do you have any objection to them being a party? Okay. So those are the 2 additional parties.
Okay. And nothing on the internet, so we're fine. Okay, Mr. Gonzalez or Ms. Gomez Diaz, whichever one wants to speak, please speak into the mic so everybody can hear you.
Good evening. My name is Jesus Gonzalez and my wife is Lizalba Gomez. We live at 1614 Ridgeview Avenue, Lancaster, PA 17603. And we're seeking a special section to start a daycare at our home. My wife got laid off about 3 months ago, and we thought we start family daycare at our home to support the family, and also it'll be a good thing for the community because we'll be able to provide that service for the community, for those in the community that needs it.
Okay. Questions, gentlemen?
In your application, Beth, could you scroll up a little bit? This sheet here, right, that too far. Go back. Yeah, that one. Has all that been completed?
In which way? Like, we're
Well,
working with the DHS, but we need a permit of occupancy to proceed. Like to submit the application, we have to have a permit of occupancy.
right, I understand that, but I mean, like, your background checks, all that, are they completed?
Yes,
Um. So pretty much what you're waiting for. You have all your required clearances. All you're waiting for is the state to grant you license, which requires a certificate of occupancy, correct?
yes,
Okay. So if this board was to grant your request and made it a condition that you must submit the certificate from the license from the state as a condition, you're okay with that?
yes.
And just to go over, your hours would be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Yes,
Monday through Friday, correct?
yes,
Nothing on the weekends. All right, thank you.
Other questions, gentlemen? Mr. Kyle?
Just a question on the parking. Can you clarify where people would be dropping off their
at our
children?
driveway,
Pulling into the driveway off the street?
yes.
Okay.
Pull that up a little further there, thanks. Just to follow up on that question of Mr. Kyle's, can people pulling into your driveway turn around before and so they're pulling out onto Ridgeview Drive?
No, sir.
Okay, so they would have to back out.
Yes,
Okay,
If you go down one more, you'll see a picture of the driveway, I think.
When,
There,
yeah.
so that answers your question.
yeah, I didn't know if there was a ability for a turnaround or not.
A quick question.
Not easily.
Okay, Mr. Hanson?
Would the kids be using is there a back entrance into the house off the driveway, or they're gonna go through the front of the house?
no, they're gonna go into the side door right there at the end of the driveway.
Right there? Okay.
Yes,
Okay, and in your application, did file with the state for a family, which daycare center, which is 6
children
Chil-
or less.
6 children or less, not including any that you may have. Okay. Do you have a question? Oh, something else I wanted to ask. Okay, based on the diagram, and I presume that the state has looked at this also, you are in compliance as having sufficient room within the house and also an enclosed outside play area.
Yes,
Okay. And the outside play area will be, it says in the exhibit, it will be fenced in so the
Yeah.
children can't run.
yes.
And the ages of the children that you're potentially have?
My wife has said that she wants to work with 2 to 4 years old, 2 months to 4 years old.
So they're infant children, not
Yes.
larger, like kids that would be coming home from middle school, after school, that would be there, and that there'll be, I don't want to call them babies, but infants, small.
Infant and toddler.
Okay, toddler, good one, thanks. That's it. Jason, questions?
No, I don't have any.
Beth?
No.
Okay, anyone in the audience and or in the internet that have questions of the applicant? 1 second, sir.
Oh, before he goes,
Sorry, sir.
I'm sorry, the applicant did hand 2 letters. And they've already been marked as applicants exhibit 1 and 2. And I'll just read them into the record. They're very short. The one is, to whom it may concern, I, Mark Bleacher, am residing at 1613 Ridgeview Avenue, Lancaster, PA 17603. We are okay with our neighbor Jesus Gonzalez and Lisaba Gomez Diaz to start a family home daycare at 1614 Ridgeview Avenue, Lancaster, PA 17603. If you have any questions, feel free to call me, and he gives a phone number.
Would you say the address of that was again?
The address of this person,
Yeah.
1613
1613.
Ridgeview Avenue. The other one says the exact same thing, except it's Joel and Deborah Schelling at 1617 Ridgeview Avenue. And they say the same thing.
Okay, we'll take proper notice at the time. Okay, sir, yes. Please speak into the mic.
It's only because I'm Peter Byrne, 1625 Ridgeview Avenue. I have a question about the fence. I know that the rear, well, it's the rear of that outdoor play area goes to a very sheer drop off down to the level of Wilson Avenue below. It used to be a quarry. And so the quarry wall is at the rear of all those houses along the south side of Ridgeview Avenue. So what is the height of the fence that you propose to erect back there? Or is there an existing fence?
And
Sir.
The rear
Gonzalez.
of the play area? Be
the
this.
play area will be just 24 feet by 24 feet.
Yes, but this, you have a fence here.
Excuse me, gentlemen. This is Mr. Gonzalez, answer into the mic. There's 2 mics there. You can share them, but just so,
No, the play area won't reach the back. There is no fence on the property line on the back.
Well, it says add to existing fence.
Existing fence in the front.
Oh.
That's what I meant.
Okay, then the question is, are you going to erect a fence at the rear property line, the rear of the play area?
No.
Ooh, that's a problem. Because as I
Well-
said, there is if it's unfenced, the children will be able to go over that down into the trees.
Well, let me interject here just to hopefully clear it up. Mr. Gonzalez, I presume this, in your application for your state license, did you submit this diagram and did you explain about the property and potential fencing of the play area?
I explained it to them and they say that we only need to walk the children maybe like 15 minutes per day. And they don't require for the fence to be put up.
Okay, that answers the question. Thank you.
Second question is to the board. If you approve and grant a special exception, does that exception run with the property? Or can it be conditioned that it only runs with the applicant?
We can condition a special exception. Jason, correct me if,
Right, normally all approvals run with the land. If the applicant is, the board can set conditions and, I mean, I would think the applicant would be agreeable to having it limited to them. But, maybe that question should be asked of them, but normally approvals do run with the land. However, because he's submitting, the board's requiring them to submit their license for their approval to run this, I think it would be, because of the nature of this request, I think it would be specific to their license.
Mr. Burns, we have, this board in the past numerous times over the last 2 years has conditioned things to the property as only to the owner. Once he sells, it disappears. So yes, we can do that.
I would respectfully request that you do it in this case, that once, if and when the applicants sell the property, that the special exception is just extinguished.
it's
Because,
reasonable.
thank you. I'll have comments then.
Any questions from anyone else? Questions?
Good evening. My name is Hong Nguyen. At 1617 Wilson Avenue. Our property just behind his property. So I also have a concern about because in the back of his yard that really have a step hill go down to my property. And that also concerned by kids, and because they don't have a fan, if the children can, like fall down, and I don't want that happen. And also, I observe his kid, okay, go cut through my property many times, but I don't want to confront him because they say get the children. So I talked to him. I said, you're not, I'm not happy to see you to go through my property without my permission, because I don't know if something happened to him, we are liable for that. And I don't want that happen. So if he run for the child care there, there are people, the kid will be, because if we do that, we don't have privacy. If we go to my property, that's trespassing. I don't want that happen. So that's my concern. But my main concern, the safety of the children. So if he want to have a child care, I expect he should have something to protect the children.
Do you have any questions at this time of the applicant? We'll let statements be made after we get through the questions. Is there any other, do you have a question of the applicant for anything that he wants?
I'm trying to understand the picture. So if you can help me. Yeah, I went this way.
Yeah.
How do I do this?
I can try that if you want. I think I understand what the problem is.
Okay, so this is, Pete, help me because I'm not good with maps. This is Richview.
No, Richview's on
This
right
is
there.
Richview.
Right here, yeah.
Okay. I said my house is behind his house. So is my house right here?
Yeah, behind it.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the driveway, the picture of the driveway that I always saw,
Right.
that you just showed me. Correct?
That's
Yes.
correct, yeah.
Okay. We walk our dog. We always saw cars in the driveway here. So how are the clients gonna drop off the kids if their car's parking here? And if cars parked here, obviously it's not gonna be accurate to say that the cars, that the parents will park in the driveway and then drop off the kids and then go into the side door. And then I also saw cars parked on the front of the house. So that I'm just saying that following what I heard so far. So am I on the right track by raising those questions?
Yeah, Mr. Gonzalez can answer them or attempt to answer them.
Yes, there won't be no car on my driveway at hours of operation, or at least the time that we arrange with our potential customer drop off or pickup time.
So whose cars are they that I saw in the driveway here and at times right here when I walk my dogs?
I don't know what time that was or what day, so I wouldn't be able to say.
I walk my dog during the day and afternoon. That's following what has been discussed so far. And then following what Pete's question, my house is back here. I raised the question right away when I saw the map, when it says existing to the existing fence. So following what Pete's questions, if I understand it correctly, there is not a fence here right now.
That's just the property line, right? there.
Okay, you are not gonna prop up the fence.
Eventually, yeah, but not right away.
When do I get to make my statement?
After we're done with the questions.
Okay, well, then my question is right there then. So my question, just follow what was discussed, is that the car's gonna be parked right here in the driveway and then the parents gonna drop off the kids. Well, I always saw a car parked here, so I don't know how can that be accurate or how can that be done? And then I also saw a car parked on the street. So if the cars are moved here, where they're gonna be? Because it's not a long distance here. I'm just questioning, I'm trying to
asking-
make sense.
Are you asking where will my cars be?
I'm just saying you made statement to the board and to us that the cars will be parked in the driveway and the kids will be dropped off and be brought in by the side door. And by my observation, when I walked my dog, I'm just trying to make sense of what you made stated to the board and to us is if there are cars here, how can cars be parked in the driveway? And it's not a long driveway, am I correct? It's not a long driveway. So if you move your cars out to allow that to allow room for the parents to park, then where are these cars gonna be parked? When I also cars park at the front of the street. I'm just trying to make sense what I heard tonight.
There's no reason why the residents can't park their cars on the street. There's no parking in that area. So he could put his personal cars on the street. That would free the driveway up for parents to drop the kids.
And then I just I just have same concern that Pete has because I live right behind there. I know the physical condition of back there. When I hear him saying no fence, I have a very great concern, but I bring that up in my own statement later.
Basically the dimension here, that not correct at all, you know. I know the dimension, this should be wider than 24 by 24 here.
That will be the play area, just the play area. It should
Just
be,
play area, okay?
yes.
If you say play area, do you have any prevention, you know, that go to my property? Because I saw, you know, many ball, you know, like tennis ball, baseball, get, you know, go to,
Balls.
yeah, get ball to roll down to my property.
Run down the hill and
Yeah. And then, you know, and sometimes they have a party in the back here. In the back here, they have the patio in the back here. But in this picture here, they didn't include that patio. But in the movie, and I don't know, you know, they have the permission to build the patio in the back. So, but they didn't include in this drawing here.
Well, having a patio back there, whether it's open, you know, a yard or a patio,
You know, they have
yeah,
roof.
well, that,
Yeah.
I'm not sure that has anything more than what we're concerned about is where the play area is, which also is the department, the state. So I'm not sure what that does. The fence issue is an issue, but I'm not sure the patio is really an issue.
What,
But that, yeah, I really concerned about, you know, the privacy and really concerned about the fence issue, yeah.
Mr. Hanson?
Mr. Gonzalez, I don't know if you know the exact answer if somebody else does, but how big a drop off is that?
It's, I wouldn't be able to answer that. There's one side that's pretty steep, but there's no way to go through there. But the other side's just like downhill.
Okay.
It doesn't show it in the back.
Because the trees are.
Yeah.
But if you go over a little bit, you can see that there's definitely a
That's
grade
what I'm-
there.
yeah. Okay, I did not catch your name. There's one sitting looking straight at me. Yeah. Byrne? Okay, Mr. Byrne, can you, to the mic, get back to that question? Behind you is the map. And on the map, oh, we can go this way. If you look on this screen here, that's Ridgeview.
Correct.
This is the back property line, okay? This here is,
Yeah, actually, it's not.
The property line is much further.
If I may,
right there. Isn't that it?
no,
Oh, okay.
if I may show you this. you
Yeah,
probably
please.
won't, Admit it, but this is, the county county GIS. The properties in that neighborhood are very, very different. This is his property.
Okay,
The lines normally would be here.
right,
But he owns this piece down the hill.
okay,
So it hits the bottom of the hill and runs into the back of their property and the neighbor's property.
okay, so,
So he actually owns over the hill and down to.
okay, so here's the front, and this is Ridgeview,
yeah.
right, okay, so he's come to, so if I'm looking at that, right,
This is his house here.
right,
And this is the patio he's talking about.
right.
But this is his property.
He owns, yes, he owns in this, and this is that wooded Slope.
Slope,
down to Wilson Avenue.
okay. So literally, when I was drawing that up there, I was going across just that,
Correct.
what would typically be the end, but he actually goes behind these other three lots.
Indeed, yes.
Okay, so and you live,
I'm over in here.
yeah, so you've been there for a while, so how, in your best guesstimate, how deep is that a drop off?
100 feet.
From
If
at the
you-
back of his house here down to here, no, down to here. You're saying it's like 100-foot drop.
Wilson Avenue is the same level as Columbia Avenue. Topographically.
Right.
Ridgeview Avenue goes
Up.
up, up, up. That's why they call it Ridge View. And it's, I'm guessing 100 feet above the elevation of Wilson Avenue.
But
Okay.
on one side, it's not as steep as on the other, correct?
This used to be a quarry. This whole thing was a quarry. It was quarried out.
The wall of a quarry. I was looking at this area right here. And yes, you can see there's a decent sized grade there, but it doesn't look as steep as like what it does over here.
Yeah, I've not been back in there, so.
Okay,
And you can see down here, these lines. This is lower. This is Cornell.
right.
And this is, these are about the same elevation as Wilson. It's about here is where you start to go up the hill.
Okay, so basically, what Mr. Gonzalez is proposing is really to use this section of his property and the playground or play area would be in that section, from what I understand and what you're showing.
What you see here, probably to about here is this
Yeah,
flag
yeah,
portion. This red piece here, I think, is the roof over his patio. And the play area would be underneath that.
yeah, okay. Thank you for clarifying that up for me. Huh? Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that, but I wanted to look at
This,
something else.
this is Ridgeview. So this is your entrance, your driveway.
When you get done, I have a question I'd like to ask.
This is
them too.
essentially your lot up on top. This is what shows
Yeah.
from above. And then this part is going down the hill.
Yes.
And they wanted to make sure they understood where the house was, where the play area was, where it fit on this property.
Play area is gonna sit, right.
Well, it's actually gonna be, from here forward. Because I don't know exactly where it starts to drop off. But
This probably start to drop off about 60 feet.
beyond your patio,
Yes.
it's flat.
Well, not beyond my area. The drop off starts on this side, starts like, I would say about 20 feet, maybe 18 feet.
From here,
Yeah,
this is
no,
your
Mr.
patio,
Beard.
right?
Here to here is probably about.
I just talked to him the other
Where it's level.
for the drop off, but over here it's not. It goes even further down flat.
Anyhow, you can see what we're talking about up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Gonzalez? Mr.
I have
Uh,
a question
Bingham.
for you, Mr. Gonzalez. I think some of the problem is that your drawing is not to a scale that makes it clear to people what you're actually talking about. What is the depth of the play area from the back of your house to where you propose to put a fence? How far is it from the back door of the house, let's say, to where you want to have your fence?
It'll be from the edge of the current, of the,
Yeah, from the back door to where the fence will be when you build it. What's the distance there? What do you think what do you want it to be?
about 24 feet.
Okay, and the width of the play area?
24 by 24.
Okay, now you realize that that drawing does not show a square.
Yeah.
24 by 24 is this.
Yeah, that's the best I
So-
could do. Sorry.
And if you don't go quite that far, you'll be well away from what their concern is about.
Yes.
If you don't go 24 feet.
Yes.
And I think you've told me that the children you want to work with are between 2 and 4
Yes.
years,
Up to 4 years old,
right?
from 2 months though. From
So-
infant to toddler.
How high a fence are you proposing to construct around this play area?
4 feet.
None of the children we're talking about are anywhere near 4 feet tall. So if that fence is made of a good enough material with no spaces that they can get through, is it your feeling that they would be unable to get out of that fenced area, even if you would happen for any reason not to be observing
Yeah. Well, the first thing is the children needs to be supervised at
all the time?
That's a
yes.
requirement of the,
It's in the state
DHS.
requirement that
Yes.
you passed.
And,
So congratulations for passing.
and, yeah, the play area will be constructed closed in completely where they won't be able to even stick a hand through the fence.
Okay. If you make it a little less than 24 feet from the back of the house, you'll probably help with most of the concerns they've brought up.
Yeah, I said 24 feet because I wasn't sure how much space they require.
How much the space that the state might require as
Yeah.
play area. I don't know that, but maybe your wife does.
She probably don't know yet, but
Yeah.
it's not quite that much because her sister also has a daycare up in Lebanon. And their space is a lot smaller than 24 by 24.
Yeah.
And they have 12 children, I believe.
Mhm. Yeah. I think you can find a way to do it that will prevent people from being concerned about them falling down a cliff that, from what you said, is as much as 40 feet from the back of your house, if I understood
Yes.
the conversation. Okay. Good, thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen? Seeing them. Thank you, Gonzalez. Now, anyone who wants to make any comments, pro or con, to this application? Mr. Gonzalez, you can sit down if you want right now.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I would like it to be known that I have no objection to them putting in a daycare facility per se. You know, I understand the need for daycare in this day and age. And think it's a good thing that they're doing. My concerns, of course, are for the safety of the children. And I can only hope that the Department of Human Services comes out and does a site inspection, you know, before they issue the license. So that if there is an issue with the drop off, that they'll catch that. My only other concerns are in that section of Ridgeview Avenue, there are a lot of property owners who park their vehicles on the street. Some on the street, some on the street and on their front yards. And to the extent that he needs that driveway for people to pull in and drop off the children, he's gonna have to keep the driveway open. They're gonna have to be cognizant of the amount of traffic and the amount of parking that's on there. That cartway is not that wide. And I'd be a little hesitant to back out of that driveway depending upon what time of day it was. But anyhow, the only other concern I would have is if everybody shows up at once. You know, if all of the parents show up at one time, that's going to be a madhouse. If they can stagger when people drop their children off, even if it's only by 10 minutes, give them a time to come in, drop the child off before the next person comes. That would be very helpful. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me.
Yes, thank you. Comments, pro or con?
We have heard so much about the safety issues to this case. And I'm gonna go back because I am home a lot and I want to share with you what I have seen. And based on what I see on the map and based on what I hear and what I witness every day, my concern is I hope that you're getting the truthful information. Because first of all, the map doesn't show, my husband said the porch, but it's not really a porch. It's an extension of the house because it has half the roof. And it does not show that on here. So I don't even know, that tells me, I don't even know if they obtained a permit to get that done. So when it says that the back door from here, well, the back door here, but then the extension's like out to here. So he's telling the township right now, the board right now, it's from here, but is it gonna be from here later on, technically when he start the work? Is it gonna be here or it's gonna be here? One, and two, as Pete has said, the line is really long. It's actually longer right down to here. It's really long. It goes right behind even the other houses to this side. You asked about the steepness of the hill. Let me tell you, as an adult, not as a children, as an adult, if you, any one of you, walk on that beside my house, behind his house, if you're not careful and you don't know how to walk, you can fall. Either behind his house on this side or on this side, which is my neighbor's house. It's very easily, even for an adult, to slip and fall. Not talking about a child. More dangerous, Pete, I don't know, I didn't see the picture that Pete showed you, but right here's my house, right here are bushes and trees. How steep is it? Let me tell you, his kids have, and I've seen, and I can tell you because of what I saw in the winter, they were able to sled. They were able to sled, right down here, they were able to sled down onto my property. I happened to be away that day and it snowed a lot. And I came home the next day, there was a sledding mark. To answer your question, how steep it is, steep enough for them to sled. So having a daycare without a fence, I'm strongly opposing it because of that. That's one is the physical nature of the lot. Secondly, we have critters back here, so it's not safe not having a fence. We have groundhog. We have, what this animal that has two black eyes? Raccoons. Raccoon carries rabies. We have red fox. We have foxes. We have opossum. We also have snakes, yes. So it's very dangerous not having a completely closed fence. Not a wire fence, not a metal fence, but almost have a closed gap, like that this gentleman just mentioned, almost like a must, in my opinion, because we have those animals back there. Then my next question is, if he requires to have a fence back here, if according to this 24 to 24, that means that he's going to close off this one small portion of the lot, then he's going to have to he's going to need to make an effort to make sure that he mows outside of that fence, on this side, back here, behind the fence, and all the way down to here behind the other houses. So if it's going to be a closed fence, he's going to need to remember to mow outside of that fence, because I can tell you right now, 24 and 24 is not all of his lot. So based on what you presented, what I see there is not truthful to what it actually is, the structure of it itself. And my concern is, just this past week, I saw 3 kids running down my lot. I happened to be in the kitchen. I ran hurried out and I said, I told you not to get down to my lot. I talked to them, the 2 children, the elder, I kept talking to them, they spoke to me in Spanish, and I talked to them, I said, look, it's very dangerous. They said they came out to get the ball. And I said, okay. Well, I had IVs and I said, be very careful, you go down and get the ball, it's okay, but I don't want you to run down here and play. If they slip and fall, they're gonna hit a tree. We have trees right there. So if they fall, they're gonna hit a tree. Then I also told them, if you go down and get the ball, I can tell you right now, there are ticks in the bushes. And then the elder child said, these 2 don't understand English. I can't communicate.
Miss, excuse me, but the issue of the animals that are there and whether there's ticks or not is
Oh,
not,
ticks is everywhere.
I know, but I mean, it's not an issue of this case. If we could
It
use.
is if you issue them the permit to open the daycare without the fence.
We have to follow the rules, regulations of the municipality's planning code. Municipality's planning code does not address the issue of whether there's ticks or wild animals there. That is for some other department to handle. So we can address the issue of a fence.
Yes, I'm just saying, I'm just bringing those up to explain to you the reason why I feel it's important to have a fence.
Well, you know, the reason for the fence is twofold. One is the request of the applicant, and then we take into consideration the concerns of neighbors in this case. So if it's warranted to have a fence, we would put that as a condition. But we can't stop balls from going from one person's yard to another person's yard. That's between the neighbors themselves. That's, not the responsibility of this board or even the townships. So, we heard that both you and Mr. Burns has a very legitimate, in my opinion, a legitimate concern about a fence. As long as the applicant meets the requirements of the Commonwealth. And any conditions that we put on, they have to comply with those. But again, if a ball goes out, whether it's his own children or the children that's in the daycare, there's no condition that we can put on that would stop that from happening.
Oh, no, I understand that. I understand that. I'm just saying to you that without offense, kids have a tendency to go down that hill.
Understand. So again, if anything else you'd like to add?
No, my concern is more with, like Mr. Burns is, majorly is the safety issues of the children. If they don't have a fence, if they walk down, it's very easy to slip. And I just want to answer your question, how steep it is. That's how steep it is. You can sled. And as an adult, you can also slip. So you can understand how steep that is.
Understand. Thank you. Anybody else? Again, in the audience or on the internet? Seeing none. So, with that, any other questions, gentlemen? Okay, with that, then we will conclude testimony. I lost my paper. On case number 2464. Along with the written and oral testimony made part of the record, we will admit into evidence applicants exhibits 1 and 2, which were 2 letters from neighbors. There are no administrative notices that need to be admitted into part of the record. With that, gentlemen, I will listen to a decision in case number 2464, if there is one at this time.
Mr. Chairman, in case number 2464, the request of Jesus Gonzalez and Lisbel, is that right? Gomez Diaz for property located at 1614 Ridgeview Avenue, Lancaster, PA 17603. Make a motion to grant their request for a special exception to section 270-3.5 D5 to allow for a family daycare center with the following conditions. 1, the special exception is only good for as long as the property is owned by the couple. 2, hours of operation will be Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 3, children are to be dropped off in the driveway, not from the street. 4, the child play area for safety reasons needs to be fenced. Let the discretion of the height of the fence and the dimensions of the fenced in area up to the township. And 5, a copy of the license operating certificate must be filed with the township when you get it.
Is that it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You want more? I'll get
Oh,
more.
yes, 6, normal.
Normal.
Okay, motion by Mr. Hanson, case number 2464 for the property at 1614 Ridgeview Avenue, Lancaster, PA. To grant. Grant a special exception to section 270-3.5 D5 to allow for a family home daycare operation with the following conditions. 1, special exception shall only last as long as the applicants are residing at the residence. 2, hours of operation will be Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. 3, children shall be dropped off only in the driveway and not on Ridgeview Avenue. 4, play area shall be fenced for the requirements of the township, with a fence not less than 4 feet in height. 5, copy of the license from the Commonwealth pertaining to the operating certificate shall be filed with the township as part of the record, and any subsequent renewals that may take place by the applicants. And 6, the normal conditions that this board places on all decisions.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second, gentlemen?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Kyle. Discussion, gentlemen.
Should we add to that condition about the fence that it's not only the township, but also any regulations from the state? We don't need to. I'm just asking if we should add it.
Now, if they should have one, I don't think there's any problem with that.
I'm assuming there's something from the agency that's gonna grant their license.
Yeah,
that
Department of Welfare.
Describes the play area.
Yeah, Mr. Henson doesn't have any problem with that.
I don't wanna put it all on the township. I'm sure we
That's-
follow the state too. Okay,
Good.
other than that, I'm good with it.
Okay, I think it was everything. Just check
So
my
that
notes.
condition would be the fence, the child play area needs to be fenced in at a height of no less than 4 feet, as long as acceptable to the township and the Department of Welfare. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Nothing else, gentlemen. Mr. Hanson,
In favor.
Mr. Kyle,
In favor.
Mr. Bingham,
In favor.
and I'll also vote in favor. Your request has been granted, but with the conditions as stipulated. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Appreciate it.
And we will be having August meeting.
Okay, Beth, how many cases next month? One. Okay. Cheryl, you're okay? That's all right. We're gonna be here anyway, so whether you get 1 or 2. Jason, you okay with date next month?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I guess that is it. Thank you, everyone. This meeting stands adjourned.
I will miss next week. I'll miss next month's meeting.
Okay.
I'll be in Rehoboth.
Ah, okay.
I got a week. Don't wanna drive back.
Yes, sir.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You too. Thank you, sir.
I'm going to bed.